My FBI agent son called at midnight. "Dad, lock everything now. Kill all the lights and get to the basement. Do not tell your son-in-law." "Patrick, you're terrifying me." "Just do it," I obeyed. Hiding in the dark workshop through the small basement window, I saw something that froze my blood. Before continuing, subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is in your region, right now. My name is Chester Burney. I'm 67 years old, living in Philadelphia's Chestnut Hill neighborhood. Spent 38 years as a fire inspector before hanging up my badge. Always thought the worst dangers were in burning buildings. Turns out the real fire starts in your own home. Let me tell you about my daughter Jessica. 42 years old, used to be my little girl who'd run to greet me after every shift. We'd sit on the porch and she'd tell me about her day, her dreams, her fears. That was before Daniel Harris walked into her life 3 years ago. Charming guy, I'll give him that. Real estate consultant, he said. Smooth talker. The kind who could sell ice to someone already freezing. When they got married 2 years back, I was happy for her. A father wants his daughter to be loved, protected. But something changed after the wedding. Jessica's laugh became quieter, her visits became shorter, and her eyes, they stopped meeting mine the same way. Then came the proposal, last February. "Dad, we want to move in with you," Jessica said over coffee at my kitchen table. "Just temporarily. Daniel's between projects, and our lease is ending. Plus, you're getting older. We could help around the house." I should have said no. Should have trusted my gut, the same instinct that kept me alive in countless blazing structures. Instead, I said yes, because she was my daughter, and I wanted to believe she still cared. That was my first mistake. Daniel moved in like he owned the place. First week, he installed security cameras. "For your safety, Chester," he said with that practiced smile. "You're living alone in a big house. Can't be too careful these days." Then came the financial help. He suggested consolidating my accounts, streamlining my bills. "I work with money every day, Chester. Let me take this burden off your shoulders." My friends started calling less. When they did, Daniel was always there, hovering. "Chester's resting," he'd say, taking the phone from my hand. "He'll call you back." I never did. Eventually, they stopped trying. The cameras multiplied. Living room, hallways, kitchen. "Just upgrading the system," Daniel explained. But I noticed something odd. None in their bedroom. None in the basement where I kept my clock restoration workshop. Interesting choices. Jessica went along with everything. "Dad, you need to take it easy," she'd say whenever I questioned anything. "You're not as young as you used to be. Let us help." Let us help. That phrase became their favorite weapon. My son Patrick, the one who actually gave a damn, tried reaching out. Patrick, 44, works for the FBI in their financial crimes division. Smart kid, always was. He called one evening in January, wanted to visit. Daniel answered my phone. "Patrick? Oh, Chester's sleeping early these days. Doctor's orders. I'll have him call you back." I wasn't sleeping. I was sitting 10 feet away, watching Daniel lie to my son through those perfect white teeth. After Daniel hung up, I asked, "Why didn't you let me talk to Patrick?" "You need your rest, Chester. Patrick works crazy hours anyway. He'd just worry you with work stress." "He's my son." "And you have enough stress managing your health?" Jessica chimed in from the doorway. "Daniel's right. You don't need Patrick's FBI drama in your life." That's when I started noticing the pattern. They weren't helping me. They were isolating me. Every decision went through them. Every phone call filtered through Daniel's control. My own house became a prison with invisible bars. I'm not a fool. 38 years investigating fire scenes teaches you to spot patterns, to see what doesn't fit, and none of this fit. But I played along, acted the grateful father, the doddering old man who needed protection. Because if there's one thing fighting fires taught me, it's patience. You don't rush into a burning building blind. You assess, you plan, then you act. The night everything changed was Valentine's Day. February 14th. The clock on my nightstand read 12:17 a.m. when my phone buzzed. Daniel and Jessica were asleep, or so I thought. I grabbed it quickly, saw Patrick's name on the screen. "Hello?" I whispered. "Dad, listen carefully." Patrick's voice was tight, urgent, not the tone of a casual late-night chat. "Right now, Lock all your doors and windows. Turn off every light in the house. Then go to the basement, your workshop. Don't come out. And Dad, whatever you do, don't tell Daniel I called." My heart hammered. "Patrick, you're scaring me." "Just do it. Please. Trust me." The line went dead. I sat there in the darkness, phone clutched in my shaking hand. Patrick wouldn't call at midnight to play games. Something was wrong. Something was very wrong. I slipped out of bed, moved through my house like a ghost. Every instinct screamed at me to turn on lights, to check on Jessica and Daniel. But I trusted Patrick. After months of isolation, of manipulation, of controlled captivity, my son's voice was the only thing that felt true. I checked the front door, locked. Back door, locked. Windows secure. Then I killed the lights, one by one, until my home sat in complete darkness. Through Jessica's bedroom door, I heard nothing. Either they were deep asleep, or they were lying there, listening. The basement stairs creaked under my weight. I froze with each sound, waited, then continued down. My workshop sat in the far corner, surrounded by my collection of antique clocks. 23 of them, each one restored with my own hands over 15 years. The ticking filled the silence like a dozen tiny heartbeats. I sat in my work chair, surrounded by springs and gears and the smell of oil. The small ground-level window offered a narrow view of my driveway, my front walk. Whatever Patrick was worried about, I'd see it coming. The minutes crawled. My watch showed 12:43 a.m., then 1 a.m. Nothing. At 1:15 a.m., I heard it, footsteps above me. Daniel's voice muffled through the floor. He was on the phone. "Yeah, he's asleep. Everything's quiet. Nobody's going to interrupt us." A pause. "Come on over. Give it 30 minutes. Park down the street. Lights off." My blood turned to ice. I pressed myself against the cold basement wall, barely breathing. The clocks ticked around me, marking time I wished would stop. Above, Daniel's footsteps moved through the house. I heard him pause outside my bedroom door, checking on me, making sure the old man was still tucked away like a good little prisoner. The workshop window sat just above ground level, offering a narrow slice of the outside world. I positioned myself in the darkest corner, where I could see out but remain invisible. My heart pounded so hard I thought Daniel might hear it through the floorboards. I used to sit in this exact spot with Jessica when she was 8 years old. She'd perch on my workbench, legs swinging, watching me dismantle pocket watches. "How do you know which piece goes where, Daddy?" she'd ask, eyes wide with wonder. "Patience, princess," I'd tell her. "Every piece has its place. You just have to pay attention, learn the patterns." She'd stay for hours, asking questions, handing me tiny screws and springs. Sometimes she'd fall asleep on the old couch I kept down here, and I'd carry her upstairs, tucking her into bed. Those were good days. Days when my daughter loved me, not my bank account. The memories shattered when I saw them. 1:20 a.m. 2 cars rolled up my street, headlights off. They moved like sharks through dark water, smooth, silent, predatory. Both vehicles parked at my curb. 3 men emerged, dressed in dark clothing. No faces visible, no identifying features, just shadows, moving with purpose. Daniel opened my front door before they knocked. Through the narrow window, I watched them file into my home. My home, the place where I'd raised 2 children, where my wife had died peacefully in our bed, where every room held 4 decades of memories. And now these strangers walked through my door like they owned it. I couldn't hear their conversation, but I could see shadows moving across the living room window. Then they disappeared from view, heading deeper into the house, toward my study, toward my safe. My hands clenched into fists. The safe. That's what this was about. But how did Daniel know the combination? I'd never written it down, never told anyone except Jessica, last year, when she'd moved in. "Dad, what if something happens to you? What if there's an emergency and we need important documents?" So reasonable, so concerned, so convincing. I'd given her the combination. 6 numbers I'd used for 20 years. The month and day my wife and I got married. I'd handed my daughter the keys to everything, and she'd delivered them straight to this snake she'd married. The wait felt eternal. My legs cramped. My back ached. But I didn't move, couldn't move. because if they knew I was awake, if they suspected I'd seen anything, I didn't know what would happen. I thought about the other times I'd trusted the wrong people. In my second year as a fire inspector, I'd cleared a warehouse that my gut told me was suspicious. 2 weeks later, it burned down in an obvious arson for insurance scheme. The owner had smiled at me, shaken my hand, looked me right in the eyes, and lied. I'd been younger then, more naive. I learned from that mistake. Clearly, I hadn't learned enough. At 1:47 a.m., they emerged. I pressed closer to the window, straining to see. One of the men carried a manila envelope, thick, full. Daniel held something else, smaller. They spoke briefly at the door, some kind of exchange. The man handed Daniel a white envelope. Payment, instructions, proof of betrayal in crisp bills. Then they were gone. Cars started, still no headlights, and melted back into the night. I waited, counted to 200, listened to Daniel's footsteps overhead as he moved through the house, checking windows, resetting locks, playing the concerned son-in-law, protecting dear old Chester from the dangerous world outside. Eventually his footsteps retreated to Jessica's bedroom. The door closed. Silence fell, broken only by my clocks and my ragged breathing. I sat in that basement until dawn broke, watching the sky change from black to gray to pale blue, thinking, planning, remembering. Jessica at 10, bringing me burnt pancakes on Father's Day, so proud of herself. Jessica at 16, crying on this very couch after her first heartbreak, while I held her and promised everything would be okay. Jessica at 25, at her mother's funeral, gripping my hand so tight I thought she'd break my fingers. When did that girl disappear? When did she transform into someone who'd betray her own father? Or had she always been capable of this, and I'd just refused to see it? The hardest truth hit me like a falling beam. Maybe she hadn't changed at all. Maybe I'd just loved her too much to notice what she really was. Around 6 a.m., I heard movement upstairs. Normal morning sounds. Water running, coffee brewing. The performance of normalcy resuming right on schedule. I climbed the basement stairs slowly, every joint protesting. Made my way to my study. The safe sat behind a painting of a lighthouse, my wife's favorite. My hands shook as I spun the combination. Inside, chaos. Documents scattered, obviously rifled through hastily. And the important ones? Gone. The deed to my house. My will. Several financial documents. All the originals. Gone. Dad? You're up early. I nearly jumped out of my skin. Jessica stood in the doorway wearing her bathrobe, coffee mug in hand, concerned daughter face firmly in place. Couldn't sleep, I managed. Thought I'd check on some paperwork. At 6 a.m.? She moved closer, and I instinctively closed the safe. Everything okay? Fine, just restless. You should get more rest. That phrase again. Daniel's making breakfast. Come eat something. I followed her to the kitchen, playing my role. The doddering father. The man too old and confused to notice what was happening under his own roof. Daniel stood at the stove, flipping pancakes. Morning, Chester. How'd you sleep? Like a baby, I lied, accepting a plate of food I had no intention of eating. They chatted about their day ahead. Jessica had appointments at the salon where she worked as a manager. Daniel had client meetings, probably other people to rob blind. Normal, boring, domestic conversation, as if they hadn't just stolen everything from me while I cowered in my basement. I watched them, really watched them, the way Daniel's eyes flickered to Jessica whenever I spoke, the way she touched his arm, a silent signal passing between them. They were a team, not husband and wife, not family. A team of predators who'd selected their prey carefully. After they left for the day, I grabbed my phone with trembling fingers, dialed Patrick's number. He answered on the first ring. Dad, are you okay? I need to know what's happening, Patrick. Right now. He was quiet for a moment. You saw them, didn't they? Last night. 3 men. They took documents from my safe. Daniel let them in. Patrick, what is going on? My son exhaled slowly. Dad, the FBI is investigating a document forgery ring. Real estate fraud, fake deeds, stolen identities, millions of dollars, and Daniel's name is all over our investigation. The room spun. I sat down hard. Last night we got intelligence that he was meeting with 2 suspects. Mark Turner and James O'Connor. I couldn't get a warrant in time, couldn't officially intervene. It's a conflict of interest because you're my father, but I couldn't let you walk into danger blind. So you warned me. I warned you, and Dad, you need to be very careful now. Gather evidence, but don't let them know you suspect anything. I'll help however I can unofficially, but this is going to have to be your fight. Can you do that? Could I? I was 67 years old, tired, betrayed by my own daughter, robbed in my own home, but I was also a man who'd spent 38 years walking into fires when everyone else ran away. Yeah, I said finally. Yeah, I can do that. Good. And Dad, I'm sorry. About Jessica. I know this has to be killing you. It was. But I couldn't afford to die just yet. I had work to do. The next morning I became a different man. Not overnight. That's not how it works. But that phone call with Patrick flipped a switch somewhere deep inside me. The frightened old man hiding in his basement, he was gone. In his place stood someone who'd spent decades walking into burning buildings while others ran away. I started watching them. Really watching. Daniel left the house around 9 that morning. Meeting with clients, he announced, kissing Jessica on the cheek. Such a devoted husband. I watched from my chair in the living room, pretending to read the newspaper. The moment his car turned the corner, I was up. Jessica was in the shower. I had maybe 10 minutes. Their bedroom looked normal at first glance. Bed made, clothes folded, everything neat. But I'd investigated enough crime scenes to know that people hide things in predictable places. Under the mattress, nothing. Dresser drawers, clothes, some jewelry. Then I checked the closet. Behind a stack of Daniel's dress shirts, tucked into a shoebox. Documents. Copies of bank statements. Not mine, someone else's. 3 different people, actually. All with significant balances. All with notes in Daniel's handwriting. Good candidate. An easy mark. I photographed everything with my phone, hands steady despite my racing heart. Put it all back exactly as I'd found it. By the time Jessica finished her shower, I was back in my chair, newspaper in hand. Just another boring Tuesday morning. Want more coffee, Dad? She asked, walking past me to the kitchen. No thanks, sweetheart. Sweetheart. The word tasted like ash in my mouth, but I smiled, played my role. Over the next week, I cataloged everything. Daniel's patterns were predictable once you knew what to look for. Every Wednesday, he'd spend 2 hours in my study, with the door closed, making phone calls. Every Friday, he'd take out the trash personally. Never let me do it, controlling even the garbage, probably destroying evidence. So I started getting up before dawn on Fridays, checking the trash before he took it out. That's how I found the draft document that changed everything. It was crumpled at the bottom of the kitchen trash, coffee grounds staining one corner. A legal petition. I smoothed it out on my workbench, reading by the light of my desk lamp. Petition for determination of incapacity and appointment of guardian. My name was on it, Chester Burney, age 67. The petition claimed I was suffering from dementia, unable to manage my own affairs, a danger to myself. It requested that Daniel Harris and Jessica Burney Harris be appointed as my legal guardians, with full control over my finances, property, and medical decisions. I read it 3 times. Each time, my anger burned hotter. The document was dated but not yet filed. A draft. They were still perfecting their theft, making sure every detail was right before they sprang the trap. I thought about confronting them, throwing the petition in their faces, demanding answers. But that's not how you win wars. You don't attack when your enemy expects it. You wait. You plan. You strike when they're confident they've already won. Jessica came home from the salon that afternoon, chattering about a difficult client. I listened, nodded, made sympathetic sounds, all the while thinking about that petition hidden in my workshop safe. You seem quiet today, Dad, she said over dinner. Everything okay? Just tired, honey. Getting old, I guess. Daniel snorted. Aren't we all? Speaking of which, Chester, I've been meaning to talk to you about your medications. I think we should schedule an appointment with your doctor. Make sure everything's optimized for someone your age. Someone your age. As if 67 meant I had 1 foot in the grave. My doctor says I'm healthy as a horse. Sure. But a second opinion never hurts. I know a specialist. Dr. Morrison. Very experienced with geriatric patients. I bet he did. Probably the same doctor who'd sign off on their incompetency claim. I'll think about it, I said. After dinner, I retreated to my workshop, sat among my clocks, listening to their ticking. Time passing, time running out. But not for me, for them. I pulled out my phone and searched for family law attorneys in Philadelphia. Found one with excellent reviews. Margaret Fisher, specializing in elder rights and guardianship abuse. Her website showed a stern-faced woman in her 50s, with the kind of eyes that said she'd seen every scam in the book. I called her office, left a message. Brief, careful. My name is Chester Burney. I need to discuss a guardianship petition that's being filed against me. It's fraudulent. Please call back. That night, Daniel and Jessica sat in the living room, talking in low voices. I stayed in my bedroom. Door cracked open an inch. Their voices carried. How much longer? Jessica asked. Another month or two, Daniel replied. I've got Morrison lined up. He'll do the evaluation, sign off that Chester's incompetent. Then we file. Once we're appointed guardians, we sell the house, liquidate everything. And the documents you gave those guys, that's separate income. 50 grand once they create the forgeries. Nice bonus. Jessica laughed, actually laughed. Dad has no idea. He's too trusting, too old. Thinks we're taking care of him. My hands clenched the bed frame. Too trusting, too old. 50 years of my life dismissed with two phrases. I'd spent decades analyzing fire patterns, determining origins, reconstructing events from charred remains. This was no different, except instead of investigating after the fire, I was standing inside it, mapping the accelerants before anyone struck the match. The next day, Margaret Fisher called back. Her voice was crisp, professional. Mr. Burney, I got your message. Can you come to my office this afternoon? I have an opening at 3. Yes, I said. Yes, I can. Daniel was out. Jessica was at work. I took the bus downtown. Didn't want to ask for a ride. Didn't want questions. Margaret Fisher's office occupied the 15th floor of a center city high-rise. Through the windows, you could see the whole city spread out like a map. She listened to my story without interrupting. When I finished, she sat back in her chair, fingers steepled. Mr. Burney, you're in a serious situation, but you're also lucky. Lucky? You found out before they filed. That gives us time. Most people don't realize what's happening until they're already in court, already losing. She pulled out a legal pad. Here's what we're going to do. First, you need an independent psychiatric evaluation, someone they can't influence or bribe. I know a good doctor, Dr. Robert Hill. He'll document that you're completely competent. Okay. Second, we change every lock in your house. New combination on your safe. They can't have access to anything. They'll notice. Let them notice. By the time they figure out what's happening, it'll be too late. She smiled grimly. Third, we draft new legal documents. A new will, revoking any previous powers of attorney, and we prepare a countersuit for financial exploitation. I listened to her plan, feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. One more thing, Margaret said. I need you to gather evidence. Record their conversations if you can. Document everything. Pennsylvania is a two-party consent state for recordings, but if you're in your own home and you're part of the conversation, or if they don't have a reasonable expectation of privacy in common areas, we have some flexibility. I thought about my antique clocks, about the one on the living room mantel, a beautiful piece from 1920, with a hollow base where I could easily hide a small recording device. I can do that, I said. Over the next 2 weeks, I gathered everything. The recording device, smaller than a deck of cards, fit perfectly inside the clock. I activated it one evening when Daniel and Jessica were watching TV. They didn't disappoint. We should file next month, Daniel said, scrolling through his phone. I've already talked to Morrison. He'll see Chester, ask a few questions, and sign the paperwork saying he's got dementia. What if Patrick interferes? He won't. He's FBI, has to stay clean. Conflict of interest. Once we're guardians, Patrick can't do anything. Chester will be our ward. We'll control everything. Jessica sighed. I feel bad sometimes. He's my father. He's old, Jess. He doesn't need all this money sitting around. Better we use it now, while we can enjoy it. What's he going to do with $890,000 in equity and $340,000 in savings? Watch TV and restore clocks? That's not living. I guess you're right. I'm always right. Trust me. I listened to that recording 5 times. Each time my jaw clenched tighter. Each time my resolve hardened. They thought I was weak, senile, an easy mark. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Dr. Robert Hill's office was nothing like I expected. No sterile white walls or uncomfortable chairs. Instead, it felt like someone's study. Books lining the shelves, warm lighting, comfortable leather furniture. The kind of place where you could actually think clearly. "Mr. Burney," he said, shaking my hand, "Margaret Fisher speaks very highly of you. She says you're dealing with a difficult family situation." That's one way to put it. Over the next 2 hours, Dr. Hill put me through a battery of tests, memory exercises, problem-solving tasks, questions about my daily life, my habits, my decision-making processes. He was thorough, professional, and I could tell he actually cared about getting it right. When we finished, he leaned back in his chair. "Mr. Burney, I'm going to be blunt with you. There is absolutely nothing wrong with your cognitive function. Your memory is excellent for someone half your age. Your reasoning is sound. Your judgment is clear. If someone's trying to have you declared incompetent, they're either mistaken or they're lying." "I know which one it is." "Yes," he said quietly. "I suspect you do." He typed up his report right there, printed it, and signed it. "This should give you the ammunition you need. If they try to pursue guardianship, this evaluation will shut them down." I tucked the report into my jacket. "Thank you, Dr. Hill. Take care of yourself, Mr. Burney. And if you need anything else, another evaluation, testimony, whatever, call me." The locksmith came the next day. I'd told Daniel and Jessica I'd be out all afternoon. A lie, but they didn't question it. Instead, I waited until they left for work, then had every lock in the house changed. New deadbolts, new keys, new safe combination. The locksmith, a gruff man named Pete, worked quickly and efficiently. "Kicked out some freeloaders?" he asked as he installed the last lock. "Something like that." Smart man. Never let people take advantage, even if they're family. Especially if they're family. After he left, I walked through my house, testing each lock. For the first time in months, I felt like I owned my own home again. They could live here, sure, but they didn't control it anymore. Margaret Fisher worked fast. Within a week, she'd prepared a stack of documents 6 inches thick. New will, Jessica got exactly what Pennsylvania law required she inherit, not a penny more. Revocation of all previous powers of attorney, a living trust protecting my assets, and the piece de resistance, a preliminary injunction preventing anyone from accessing my financial accounts without my explicit in-person authorization. "We'll file this quietly," Margaret explained. "They won't know until they try something and get shut down." "What about their petition? If they file it, we'll be ready. We have Dr. Hill's evaluation, evidence of their financial exploitation, and testimony from you about their isolation tactics. Any judge will see through it immediately." I sat in her office, surrounded by legal documents that protected everything I'd built over a lifetime. It felt like putting on armor. "There's one more thing," I said. I pulled out my phone, played the recording of Daniel and Jessica discussing their plan. Margaret listened, her expression darkening. When it finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "Mr. Burney, this is evidence of fraud and financial exploitation. With your permission, I'd like to contact Adult Protective Services. They need to know about this." "Not yet," I said. "I want to see their faces when they realize what's happened, when they understand they've lost." She studied me. "You're angrier than you let on. I'm a father whose daughter is trying to rob him blind. Wouldn't you be?" "Yes," she admitted. "But anger is dangerous. It makes us reckless." "I'm not being reckless. I'm being methodical. I spent 38 years investigating fires." "This is no different. I'm just building my case before the flames catch." 3 weeks after my midnight phone call from Patrick, I was ready. The bank had frozen all joint accounts, requiring my in-person authorization for any transactions. My new will was filed. My psychiatric evaluation was sealed and notarized. Margaret Fisher had my countersuit prepared, ready to file the moment Daniel and Jessica made their move. All I had to do was wait. They noticed the bank thing first. Jessica came home one afternoon furious. "Dad, there's something wrong with our account. The bank says they need you to come in person to authorize any withdrawals. I looked up from my newspaper. Oh, must be a security thing. Identity theft is so common these days. But I need to transfer money for the salon lease. I'll go with you tomorrow. Can't you just call them? Bank policy, I said with a shrug. Has to be in person. I didn't go with her, of course. Let her make the trip herself. Let her sit in that bank office and be told that Chester Burney had placed restrictions on all accounts, and only Chester Burney could authorize changes. Let her feel a tiny fraction of the helplessness she'd been inflicting on me. Daniel tried calling my doctor's office, trying to schedule that appointment with Dr. Morrison, but I'd already spoken to my regular physician, Dr. Chang, and explained the situation. When Daniel called, he was politely informed that any medical appointments for Mr. Burney needed to be scheduled by Mr. Burney himself. I watched the frustration build. They couldn't access my money, couldn't control my medical care, couldn't understand what was happening. One evening, I came home from my workshop to find them in the living room, arguing in hushed tones. They stopped when they saw me. Everything okay? I asked innocently. Fine, Daniel said through clenched teeth. Just fine. But it wasn't fine. I could see it in the way his jaw worked, the way Jessica's hands trembled slightly. They were losing control, and they knew it. They just didn't understand how or why. Patrick called me again late one night. Dad, how are you holding up? Better than expected. I've got a lawyer, a good one. Margaret Fisher. You know her? By reputation, she's fierce. If anyone can protect you, it's her. He paused. Dad, I need to tell you something. We're close to making arrests in the forgery case. Daniel's name is all over it. When we move, it's going to be public. Loud. Are you prepared for that? Was I? My daughter's husband arrested by the FBI. The scandal. The shame. Yes, I said. I'm prepared. And Jessica? Have you thought about what happens to her? I had. Late at night, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling. I'd thought about my little girl, the one who used to bring me burnt pancakes on Father's Day, the one who cried in my arms after her first heartbreak. She made her choice, I said finally. I can't save her from the consequences. I'm sorry, Dad. Me too. After we hung up, I sat in my workshop, surrounded by the ticking of my clocks. Each one I'd restored piece by piece, bringing them back to life from broken, forgotten things. Some people can be restored too, given enough time, enough care, enough patience, but some people don't want to be restored. They want to burn everything down and warm themselves on the flames. I looked at the clock on my workbench, the one containing the recording device. It had captured everything I needed. Daniel and Jessica plotting, laughing about my ignorance, planning to steal everything I'd worked for. The next morning I walked into the kitchen where they were having coffee, looked at both of them. Really looked. I'm going out this morning, I said. Lawyer's appointment. Daniel's head snapped up. Lawyer? What for? Estate planning. At my age, it's important to have everything in order. Dad, we've been meaning to talk to you about that, Jessica started. I know exactly what you've been meaning to talk to me about. I kept my voice calm even. I found your draft petition, the one where you declare me incompetent. The color drained from Jessica's face. Daniel stood up slowly. Chester, I can explain. I'm sure you can. You're very good at explaining things. Very convincing. I smiled. It probably didn't look friendly. But here's the thing. I'm not the confused old man you think I am. I'm not the easy mark you planned for. And in about 3 minutes, I'm walking out that door. When I come back, I expect you both to be gone. You can't, Daniel started. This is my house. My name is on the deed, the original one before you stole it. My locks have been changed. My accounts are protected. And if you're not gone by the time I get back, I'll have the police remove you. Jessica's eyes filled with tears. Daddy, please. Don't. The word came out sharp. You don't get to call me that anymore. You lost that right when you decided I was worth more to you, dead than alive. I walked out, leaving them in stunned silence. And that's when I understood exactly how to repay them. Not with anger, not with revenge, but with something much simpler. The truth, delivered at exactly the right moment, in exactly the right way. They wanted to destroy me legally. I'd beat them legally. They wanted my money. I'd make sure they never saw a cent. They wanted to declare me incompetent. I'd prove I was the smartest person in the room. The game was just beginning, and this time I was holding all the cards. I spent the rest of that day at Margaret Fisher's office, finalizing everything. She worked with the precision of a surgeon, each document another incision removing the tumor that was Daniel and Jessica from my life. "This is the eviction notice," she said, sliding a stack of papers across her mahogany desk. "Pennsylvania law requires 30 days. They have until the end of next month to vacate. What if they refuse? Then the sheriff's department removes them. Physically, if necessary." She smiled grimly. "I've done this before, Mr. Burney. People who exploit the elderly rarely go quietly, but the law is very clear about property rights." The new will sat in front of me, 20 pages of legal language that basically said Jessica would get exactly what Pennsylvania required by law, not a penny more. Everything else would go to Patrick, with provisions for charitable donations. My workshop tools, my clock collection, the things that mattered, those went to my son who'd actually earned them. Sign here, initial here, and here. Margaret pointed to yellow tabs marking each signature line. My hand was steady. Funny how calm I felt, considering I was essentially cutting my daughter out of my life. But then again, she'd cut me out first. I was just making it official. "There's one more thing," I said. "I want to file a complaint with Adult Protective Services. Document everything they've done." Margaret nodded. "I was hoping you'd say that. It creates a paper trail. If they try anything else, harassment, defamation, false accusations, we have documentation of their pattern of abuse." The word felt strange. Abuse. I'd never thought of it that way. They'd been so subtle, so careful. But that's exactly what it was, wasn't it? Financial exploitation, emotional manipulation, isolation from my support system. "Do it," I said. That evening I returned home to find Daniel's car in the driveway. My car, technically. The one I'd let him borrow indefinitely because it's just sitting there collecting dust, Chester. I walked in through the new locks I'd had installed. The click of the bolt sliding home felt like victory. They were in the living room, sitting close together on the couch. Plotting, probably. They looked up when I entered, and I saw something new in their eyes. Fear. They were starting to realize something was wrong, even if they didn't know what yet. "We need to talk," Daniel said, standing up. "About this morning. You were upset. I wasn't upset. I was clear. You both need to leave my house." "Dad, please." Jessica's voice cracked. "Can we just discuss this like adults?" Adults don't steal from their parents. Adults don't plot to have their father declared incompetent so they can rob him blind. I kept my voice level, calm. "You want to talk like adults? Fine. I know about the petition. I know about your plan with Dr. Morrison. I know about the documents Daniel gave to his criminal friends." Daniel's face went pale. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Save it. I have recordings. I have evidence. And in about 2 weeks, you're both going to receive some very interesting legal documents." I walked past them toward my workshop. "I'd start looking for a new place to live if I were you." "You can't just kick us out." Daniel's voice rose. "We have rights." I turned back. "No, Daniel. You have 30 days. That's what Pennsylvania law gives you. After that, you have nothing." His hands clenched into fists. For a moment, I thought he might actually try to hit me. Part of me almost hoped he would. Assault would make Margaret's job even easier. But Jessica put her hand on his arm. "Daniel, don't." "Your daughter's smarter than you," I said. "She knows when to quit." I went down to my workshop, locked the door behind me, and sat among my clocks. They ticked steadily, marking time. In 30 days, this house would be mine again. Really mine. Not a prison where I was slowly suffocated by my own kindness. My phone buzzed. "Patrick, how'd it go?" he asked. "Documents are filed. Locks are changed. They know something's wrong, but not exactly what." "Good. Dad, I need to tell you something. We're moving on Daniel soon. Maybe a week, 2 at most. The investigation's almost complete." "Will Jessica be charged?" Silence. Then, "We don't think so. She's involved in the guardianship scheme, but the document forgery is all Daniel. We can prove he stole from you, gave documents to Turner and O'Connor. Jessica's connection is more circumstantial." I wasn't sure if I felt relieved or disappointed. "So she gets away with it." Legally, maybe. But Dad, she's about to lose everything. Her husband goes to prison. She loses her home. Her father cuts her off. That's not exactly getting away with it. He was right. And somehow that felt worse than if she'd been arrested. She'd have to live with what she'd done. Watch it all fall apart, knowing she'd chosen this. Thanks, Patrick. Hey, Dad, I'm proud of you. Not many people your age would fight back like this. Your age. Everyone kept saying that, like being 67 meant I was already half dead. I'd run into burning buildings at 67. I'd climbed 3-story ladders at 65. Age was just a number until people decided to use it against you. The next few days were tense. Daniel and Jessica barely spoke to me. They'd have whispered conversations that stopped when I entered a room. I watched them panic slowly, like water coming to a boil. Jessica tried one more time. She knocked on my workshop door late one evening. Dad, can I come in? Doors open. She stepped inside, looking around at my clocks, like she was seeing them for the first time. I remember watching you work on these when I was little. You'd let me hand you tools, explain how each piece fit together. You were a good helper, was I? She sat on the old couch. What happened to us, Dad? When did everything go wrong? I set down the pocket watch I'd been cleaning. You tell me, Jessica. When did you decide I was worth more to you as a legal ward than as a father? She flinched. Daniel said it would be easier this way, that you'd be taken care of, but we could manage things for you. Keep the house in the family. By declaring me incompetent? He said it was just paperwork, that nothing would really change. And you believed him? Smart, college-educated woman like you? I shook my head. Or did you just want to believe him because it meant getting what you wanted without feeling guilty? Tears rolled down her cheeks. I don't know anymore. I don't know what I was thinking. That's the problem, Jessica. You weren't thinking. Or maybe you were thinking too much about money and not enough about what it would cost you. She wiped her eyes. Is there any way to fix this? Can we start over? No, I said simply. We can't. Trust doesn't grow back once you burn it down. She left without another word. 3 days later, the papers arrived. I wasn't home when the sheriff's deputy delivered them. I'd planned it that way, spent the afternoon at the library, then grabbed coffee at a small shop on Germantown Avenue. Let them receive those documents without me there to watch. Sometimes the aftermath is sweeter than the moment itself. When I returned around 5, both cars were still in the driveway. I walked in to find Jessica sitting at the kitchen table, papers spread in front of her, face buried in her hands. Daniel stood by the window, the eviction notice crumpled in his fist. They didn't hear me come in at first. I stood in the doorway, watching. This was it. The moment everything I'd built came together. This is impossible, Daniel was saying. He can't do this. He's incompetent. We were going to prove it. He has a psychiatric evaluation, Daniel. Jessica's voice was hollow. Dated 2 weeks ago. From Dr. Robert Hill. Says he's completely competent, sharp as anyone half his age. So get another evaluation. It doesn't work that way. She slammed her hand on the table. Don't you understand? He knew. He knew what we were planning, and he... She saw me then. Her eyes went wide. Dad! Daniel spun around. The color drained from his face so fast I thought he might pass out. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. No sound came out. He looked like a fish drowning in air. Good evening, I said pleasantly. I see you got my lawyer's correspondence. Your lawyer? Daniel finally found his voice. It came out strangled, 2 octaves higher than normal. You don't have a lawyer? Margaret Fisher, excellent attorney, specializes in elder abuse cases. She's handled dozens like this. I walked to the table, picked up one of the documents. Ah, the eviction notice. 30 days, just like I said. Pennsylvania law. Jessica's hands trembled as she shuffled through papers. There's a civil suit here, for emotional distress. $120,000. Yes, that's roughly what I calculate your scheme cost me in mental anguish, sleep loss, and breach of trust. Margaret thinks we can prove it. This is insane! Daniel's face had gone from white to red, veins popping on his forehead. You can't! We'll fight this! We'll... Fight it with what money, Daniel? I pulled out a chair, sat down. Your bank accounts are frozen. Any joint accounts with Jessica require my in-person authorization to access. Your credit cards are maxed out. Yes, I checked. So unless you've got a few thousand hidden somewhere for a retainer, you're going to need a public defender. His hands were shaking now, actually shaking. He gripped the back of a chair to steady himself, knuckles white. You vindictive old... Careful, I said softly. Threatening language can be added to Margaret's documentation, makes the case stronger. Jessica pushed another paper toward him. Daniel, read this one. He grabbed it, eyes scanning. I watched the exact moment he understood what he was looking at. His face went slack, all the anger draining away, replaced by pure fear. Audio recordings, I explained. You and Jessica, discussing how you'd have me declared incompetent, how Dr. Morrison would sign off on it, how you'd sell the house, liquidate my assets. All recorded, all time-stamped, all completely legal under Pennsylvania law. I paused. The recording device was in that antique clock on the mantel. Beautiful piece, isn't it? From 1920. Hollow base. Daniel's legs seemed to give out. He sat heavily in the chair across from me. You were listening? Every word. For 3 weeks. I leaned back. You know what the funny thing is? You were so careful about those cameras you installed. Made sure you could watch me, but you never thought I might be watching you too. Jessica was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. Her shoulders shook. She looked younger suddenly, like the girl who used to help me in my workshop. But that girl was gone. This woman had chosen to betray me, and now she was learning what that choice cost. Dad, I'm so sorry. Stop. I held up my hand. You're not sorry you did it. You're sorry you got caught. There's a difference. Daniel tried one more time. Chester, listen. We can work this out. We'll drop everything, forget the guardianship petition. Oh, you'll drop it all right? Because I already filed my response with the court. Dr. Hill's evaluation, sworn testimony about your isolation tactics, evidence of financial exploitation, and those recordings. If you actually file that petition now, you'll be laughed out of court. Worse, you'll give me more ammunition for the civil suit. We'll move out, Jessica said desperately. Today. Right now. Just drop the lawsuit, please. No. The word came out hard. You get 30 days because that's what the law requires, and the lawsuit stands. You wanted to steal everything from me. Now you'll pay for trying? Daniel stood up so fast his chair fell backward. This isn't over, old man. You think you're so smart, but you have no idea who you're... Careful, Daniel. I stayed seated, calm. Because there's one more thing you should know. My son Patrick, the one you worked so hard to keep away from me, he's FBI, works in financial crimes. And it turns out he's very interested in your real estate consulting business. Something about forged documents. The color vanished from his face again. This time his legs actually buckled. He caught himself on the table, breathing hard. That's right. Those men who visited the night of February 14th, Mark Turner and James O'Connor, the FBI knows all about them, and they know about what you gave them. Stolen property documents from my safe. Federal offense, Daniel. Grand theft, conspiracy to commit fraud, and about 6 other charges I can't remember. Jessica looked at Daniel, real fear blooming in her eyes. What is he talking about? What documents? Who are Turner and O'Connor? Daniel's mouth worked, but nothing came out. Your husband runs a document forgery ring, I said flatly. He's been stealing deed originals, having them forged, selling them to criminals who use them to steal people's homes. My documents were supposed to be part of that. Unfortunately for him, Patrick had the house under surveillance that night. You're lying, Jessica whispered, but she was looking at Daniel, searching his face. Tell him he's lying, Daniel. Daniel said nothing. He just stood there, swaying slightly, looking like a man watching his whole world collapse. Get out, I said quietly. Both of you. Go to your room, pack what you need for tonight, and get out of my sight. You can come back for the rest later, during daylight hours when I'm not home. You said we had 30 days, Daniel started. That's legally. What I'm telling you now is practically, get out. They went. Upstairs, moving like zombies, shell-shocked and broken. I heard drawers opening, closets sliding, the sounds of rapid packing. 30 minutes later, they came down with suitcases, not looking at me. At the door, Jessica turned back one last time. Dad, go, Jessica. She did. I locked the door behind them. New locks, new keys, new life. stood in the sudden silence of my house. My house. Not a prison anymore, not a trap, just a house, waiting for me to decide what came next. The clocks in my workshop chimed 6 o'clock. Right on time. Everything was right on time. I called Patrick. "They know," I said. "Everything." "How'd they take it?" I thought about Daniel's face, that progression from shock to fear to absolute despair. About Jessica's tears, her trembling hands, the way she'd looked at her husband with dawning horror. "About as well as you'd expect," I said. "When are you moving on, Daniel?" "Soon, maybe a week. We need to coordinate with local police, get everything lined up." "He'll run." "Let him try. We're watching him. Has been since that night in February." After we hung up, I went down to my workshop, sat in my chair, surrounded by the steady ticking of my clocks. Each one I'd restored from broken pieces, brought back to life through patience and care. Some things could be restored. Others just needed to be thrown away. I picked up my current project, a pocket watch from 1895. Beautiful piece, but the spring had snapped. I had a replacement ordered due to arrive any day now. Fix what could be fixed. Replace what couldn't. Move forward. It was the only way to survive. The courtroom smelled like old wood and nervous sweat. I'd been in courthouses before, testifying as a fire inspector, but never as the defendant in someone's scheme to rob me of my independence. The hearing was set for a Thursday morning, 2 weeks after I'd kicked them out. Margaret Fisher sat beside me at the defense table, crisp and professional in her navy suit. Across the aisle, Daniel and Jessica huddled with their public defender, a young man who looked fresh out of law school and way over his head. Judge Sandra Morrison, no relation to the corrupt Dr. Morrison, who was supposed to certify me incompetent, presided over the proceedings. She was in her 60s, silver-haired, with the kind of sharp eyes that missed nothing. "This is a petition for determination of incapacity," she began reading from the file. "Mr. Harris and Mrs. Harris Burney are requesting to be appointed guardians of Mr. Chester Burney, claiming he is unable to manage his own affairs due to cognitive decline." Their lawyer stood. "Your Honor, we have witnesses who can attest to Mr. Burney's deteriorating condition, concerning behavior, memory lapses, poor judgment." "I'm sure you do," Judge Morrison said dryly. "Ms. Fisher, I see you've filed a response." Margaret stood, and I swear the temperature in the room dropped 5 degrees. "Yes, Your Honor. A comprehensive response that includes independent psychiatric evaluation, audio evidence of fraud, and testimony regarding the petitioner's true motivations." Daniel's face went pale. He whispered urgently to his lawyer, who looked increasingly uncomfortable. "Let's hear the petitioner's evidence first," the judge said. They called 3 witnesses. Mrs. Henderson, from 2 doors down, who claimed I'd been wandering the neighborhood confused. Mr. Patel, from the corner store, who said I'd forgotten how to work the credit card machine. And Daniel's friend Mike, who testified I'd asked him the same question 5 times in one conversation. All lies, all coached. I recognize the pattern. Create a narrative of incompetence through small, unprovable claims. Then Margaret stood up. "Your Honor, I'd like to present evidence that directly contradicts these testimonies." She pressed play on the audio recorder. My voice filled the courtroom, clear and sharp, recorded 3 days before the hearing. "Margaret, I've reviewed the Peterson case law you mentioned. The 2019 Pennsylvania Supreme Court decision in Commonwealth v. Sanders establishes precedent that testimony alone, without medical evidence, is insufficient for capacity determination. I suggest we cite that in our brief." Margaret's voice responded, "Excellent catch, Mr. Burney. Your legal analysis is spot on." The judge's eyebrow rose. "That's quite lucid for someone with cognitive decline." "There's more, Your Honor." Margaret handed her a document. "This is Dr. Robert Hill's psychiatric evaluation, conducted just last month. Dr. Hill is one of Pennsylvania's leading geriatric psychiatrists. His conclusion: Mr. Burney demonstrates complete cognitive competence, with memory and reasoning abilities in the superior range for his age group." Jessica's lawyer tried to object. "Your Honor, one doctor's opinion is significantly more credible than 3 neighbors with no medical training." Judge Morrison cut him off. "Continue, Ms. Fisher." "Your Honor, I have audio recordings of the petitioners discussing their true motivation." Margaret nodded to me. I pulled out my phone, connected it to the courtroom's sound system. My hands were steady. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. Daniel's voice crackled through the speakers. Another month or two and we file. Morrison will sign off that the old man's incompetent. Then we sell the house, liquidate everything. Jessica's laugh followed. Dad has no idea. Thinks we're taking care of him. The courtroom went silent. You could have heard a pin drop on carpet. Daniel shot to his feet. That's illegal. You can't record. Actually, Margaret said calmly, Pennsylvania is a two-party consent state, but with an exception. When recorded in one's own home, in common areas where there's no reasonable expectation of privacy, it's perfectly legal. Mr. Burney was in his own living room. The recording device was in his own clock. Everything is admissible. The judge looked at Daniel and Jessica like they were something she'd scraped off her shoe. Is there anything else, Ms. Fisher? Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to call a witness. Special Agent Patrick Burney of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The courtroom doors opened. Patrick walked in wearing his FBI credentials and a dark suit. He looked every inch the federal agent he was. I felt a surge of pride watching my son stride to the witness stand. After being sworn in, Margaret asked him directly, Agent Burney, can you explain your relationship to this case? Chester Burney is my father, Patrick said clearly, and Daniel Harris is a subject in an ongoing FBI investigation into a real estate document forgery ring. The public defender jumped up. Objection! This is beyond the scope. Overruled, Judge Morrison said sharply. I want to hear this. Continue, Agent Burney. Patrick pulled out a folder. On the night of February 14th of this year, Daniel Harris met with two suspects in our investigation, Mark Turner and James O'Connor. During this meeting, which took place at my father's residence, Mr. Harris provided them with original property documents stolen from my father's safe. These documents were intended for use in creating forged deeds. I watched Daniel's face cycle through emotions. Shock, fear, rage, then something like resignation. He knew it was over. Jessica just stared at Patrick, mouth open, probably only now understanding exactly what her husband had been doing. Your Honor, Patrick continued, Mr. Harris is currently under federal investigation for conspiracy to commit fraud, grand theft, and participation in a criminal enterprise spanning 3 states. The guardianship petition appears to be part of a scheme to gain control of my father's assets, while simultaneously stealing his identity documents for criminal use. Judge Morrison set down her pen. Mr. Harris, do you have anything to say? Daniel's lawyer whispered urgently in his ear, but Daniel just shook his head, defeated. In that case, the judge said, this petition is denied. Furthermore, I'm ordering a copy of today's transcript to be provided to the district attorney's office and to the FBI. Mr. Harris, I strongly suggest you retain criminal counsel immediately. She looked at Jessica. Mrs. Harris Burney, you may want to consider your own legal position very carefully. She banged her gavel. This hearing is adjourned. I stood up slowly, letting the moment sink in. Margaret shook my hand, smiling. Patrick walked over and I pulled him into a hug. Thanks, son. You did the hard part, Dad. I just told the truth. Behind us, Daniel and Jessica were having a heated, whispered argument. I caught fragments. You said it was just paperwork, federal investigation. You lied to me. I turned to look at them one last time. Daniel met my eyes, and I saw something I'd never expected. Fear. Real, genuine fear. Good. They left through the back exit, probably to avoid reporters. Margaret gathered her files. What happens now? I asked. Now? You go home. Live your life. Let the FBI handle Daniel, and let the civil suit work its way through the system. She smiled. You won, Mr. Burney. Completely and totally. But as I walked out of that courthouse into the bright spring sunshine, I knew the real battle was just beginning. 2 weeks later, they came for Daniel at dawn. I wasn't there to see it. Patrick told me about it later, but I imagined it clearly. The unmarked cars pulling up, FBI agents in windbreakers, the knock on the door at the cheap motel where Daniel had been staying since I kicked them out. Daniel Harris, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, grand theft, and participation in a criminal enterprise. The bail hearing happened that afternoon. Patrick called me from the courthouse. Bail set at $250,000, he said. He can't make it. He'll stay in custody until trial. And Jessica? Not charged. Yet. We don't have enough evidence that she knew about the forgery ring. The guardianship scheme is a civil matter, not criminal. I sat in my workshop, phone pressed to my ear, surrounded by the ticking of my clocks. Part of me felt relief that Jessica wasn't facing federal charges. Part of me felt something darker, disappointment that she'd get away with trying to rob me. She's still facing the civil suit, Patrick reminded me. That's not nothing. True, the $120,000 lawsuit for financial exploitation and emotional distress was moving forward. Margaret said we had a strong case. The next day, Jessica showed up at my door. I saw her through the window, standing on my porch, looking small and lost. She'd aged 10 years in 2 weeks. Dark circles under her eyes. Clothes that didn't quite fit right, probably borrowed from whatever friend was letting her crash on their couch. I almost didn't answer. Almost let her stand there until she gave up and left. But I opened the door. "Dad," she said, voice cracking. "Please, I need to talk to you." "About what? How you tried to have me declared incompetent? How you planned to steal my house? Or maybe about how your husband is a federal criminal and you helped him?" Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I didn't know about the forgery. I swear I didn't know." "But you knew about the guardianship plan. You laughed about it. I heard you." I know. She wrapped her arms around herself. "Dad, I'm so sorry. I was stupid and greedy, and I let Daniel manipulate me into thinking—" She stopped, wiped her eyes. "Can I come in? Please?" Every instinct screamed, "Send her away." She made her choice. But she was still my daughter, and despite everything, I needed to hear what she had to say. I stepped aside. She walked in slowly, looking around like she'd never seen the place before. We sat in the living room, her on the couch, me in my chair, the same positions we'd sat in 1,000 times before everything went wrong. "Daniel's lawyer says he's going to prison," she said quietly. "Federal charges. They're talking about 15 to 20 years. "Good," she flinched. "Dad." "What did you expect me to say, Jessica? That I feel sorry for him? He tried to steal everything from me. He used my own daughter to do it. And he's a criminal who's been stealing from other families too. He deserves whatever he gets." "I know. You're right." She twisted her wedding ring. "I'm filing for divorce. My lawyer says it'll protect me from his debts, from the restitution he'll owe." "Smart. At least you're thinking about self-preservation now." The bitterness in my voice made her wince. Good. She should feel it. "I need to ask you something," she said. "The lawsuit. The $120,000. Dad, I don't have that kind of money. I can barely afford rent. If you win, and Margaret says you will, it'll bankrupt me." "Yes," I said simply. "It will. So that's it. You're going to destroy me completely?" I leaned forward. "You tried to destroy me first. You laughed about it. You called me the old man like I was already dead. You planned to take everything, my home, my money, my independence, my dignity. And you smiled while you did it. I was wrong. You were worse than wrong. You were cruel. You were my daughter, Jessica. I loved you. I trusted you. And you betrayed me in the worst possible way." She sobbed openly now. "Is there anything I can do? Any way to make this right?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. Could she make it right? Could there be forgiveness, redemption, a way back? "Get a job," I said finally. "Work hard. Pay your debts. To me and to yourself. Maybe, in 10 years, 20 years, when you've proven you can be trusted again, we can talk. But right now, no. There's nothing you can do." She nodded, crying, and stood up. At the door, she turned back one more time. "I love you, Dad." "I loved you too," I said. Past tense. She heard it. She left. I locked the door behind her and went down to my workshop. Picked up the pocket watch I'd been working on. The replacement spring had arrived finally. I installed it carefully, wound the watch, and listened to it tick. Perfect timing. Fixed. Some things could be fixed. Others just had to be cut away. The next week was a blur of legal proceedings. Daniel's preliminary hearing. Jessica's lawyer trying to negotiate a settlement on the civil suit. Margaret shut that down fast. More meetings, more paperwork, more signatures. Through it all, I kept working on my clocks. It was meditative, therapeutic. Each tiny gear and spring finding its proper place. Time moving forward, steady and unstoppable. Patrick came by one evening with takeout Chinese food. We sat at my kitchen table, just the two of us. "How are you holding up?" he asked. "Better than I expected. Worse than I hoped." "That's honest." He picked at his lo mein. "Dad, I need to tell you something. The FBI investigation is bigger than we thought. 23 victims across 3 states. Total losses over $4.2 million. Daniel's looking at serious prison time." "Good." "And Jessica," Patrick hesitated, "we're reviewing whether she had any knowledge of the forgery operation, her phone records, emails, bank accounts. So far nothing concrete, but if we find evidence she knew, she'll be charged too." "Yes." I pushed rice around my plate. "Do you think she knew?" "Honestly, I think she knew something was wrong but didn't want to know details. Willful ignorance. Maybe not criminal, but definitely cowardly." That sounded right. That sounded like the Jessica I'd seen these past months, turning away from uncomfortable truths, letting Daniel handle things, pretending everything was fine as long as she got what she wanted. "Whatever happens to her," I said, "she chose it. She chose Daniel. She chose greed. She chose betrayal. These are just consequences." Patrick nodded. "You're stronger than most people, Dad. Most people in your position would have given up, let it happen, become what they said you were." "Maybe. But I spent 38 years walking into fires. You don't survive that by giving up." We finished dinner. Patrick helped me clean up, then headed home to his own family. I stood at the sink, washing dishes, looking out the window at my yard. My house, my life, still mine. The clocks in my workshop chimed 9. I went downstairs, turned on my desk lamp, and got back to work. I had a beautiful 1895 pocket watch that needed its case polished. After that, a mantel clock from the 1920s that needed a new escapement. Time kept moving. I kept moving with it. And somewhere out there, Daniel sat in a cell, finally understanding what it meant to have everything taken away. Justice, I thought, watching the clock hands sweep forward, is just another word for consequences catching up. Summer passed like a slow burn. The FBI's case against Daniel expanded with each passing week. 23 victims, forged deeds across Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware. Families who'd lost their homes to criminals using fake documents. Elderly people like me who'd been targeted, isolated, robbed. Patrick kept me updated. The prosecutors pushing for maximum sentencing. They want to send a message. "Good," I said. We were having lunch at a diner near his office. "How many messages do you think it'll take before people stop preying on the elderly?" "Not enough." He pushed his sandwich around his plate. "But it's a start." The civil suit moved forward too. Margaret had built an airtight case. Audio recordings, bank records, testimony from Dr. Hill, documentation of their isolation tactics. Daniel's public defender tried to negotiate a settlement, but Margaret shut that down immediately. "They wanted everything from you," she told me. "They don't get to negotiate now." I liked her style. Then, on a humid afternoon in late summer, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Jessica standing there, and I barely recognized her. She'd aged a decade in 4 months, gray streaks in her hair that hadn't been there before, clothes that hung loose on a frame that had lost weight, dark circles under eyes that couldn't quite meet mine. She looked like she'd been hollowed out from the inside. "Dad," she said. Her voice was smaller than I'd ever heard it. "Can we talk?" I should have said no, should have closed the door, protected myself from whatever manipulation she'd prepared. But curiosity won out. I wanted to see if there was any genuine remorse in her, or if this was just another performance. I stepped aside. She walked in slowly, looking around at the house like she was visiting the museum of her former life. We sat in the living room. I didn't offer coffee. "I've been going to therapy," she said finally. 3 times a week. My therapist says I need to take accountability." "That's what therapists usually say." She flinched at my tone. "I know you hate me. I deserve that. But I need to say this, whether you believe me or not." She took a shaky breath. "I was wrong. About everything. I let Daniel manipulate me into thinking you were a burden, that we deserved your money, that the guardianship was somehow for your own good. You laughed about it. I know. Tears started falling. I know. I was so focused on what I wanted. The easy life Daniel promised. The security. The money. That I stopped seeing you as my father. You became this obstacle. This thing in the way of what I thought I deserved. You stopped loving me. No. She looked up, desperate. I never stopped loving you. I just started loving money more. And I hate myself for that. I watched her cry. Part of me wanted to comfort her, the way I had when she was little, and the world seemed too big and scary. But that little girl was gone. This woman had made her choices. What do you want from me, Jessica? Nothing. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect you to drop the lawsuit or let me back into your life. I needed you to know that I understand what I did, how much I hurt you, and I'm sorry. Silence filled the room. My clocks ticked in the workshop below, marking seconds that felt like hours. Sorry doesn't undo it, I said finally. It doesn't give me back the year I spent being isolated and manipulated. It doesn't erase the recordings of you laughing about robbing me. It doesn't heal the wound of knowing my own daughter saw me as a mark. I know. But it's a start. I leaned forward. Here's what I need from you, Jessica. Not for me. For you. Get a job. Any job. Work hard. Pay your bills. Pay the judgment you're going to owe me. Live honestly. Prove to yourself that you can be better than what you became. And then maybe in 10 years, 20 years, when you've rebuilt yourself into someone trustworthy, we can talk. But right now, you're still the woman who tried to steal everything from me. She nodded, wiping her eyes. Okay, that's fair. She stood to leave. At the door, she turned back one more time. I hope someday you can forgive me. Maybe someday I will, I said. But that day isn't today. She left. I locked the door and went down to my workshop. Picked up a clock I'd been restoring. Beautiful piece from 1902. Needed a new mainspring. I installed it carefully, wound it up, and listened to it tick back to life. Some things could be restored. Others had to be set aside until you figured out if they were worth the effort. 3 weeks later, Patrick called. It's over, Dad. Daniel took a plea deal. What kind of deal? 15 years federal prison. No chance of parole until he serves at least 12 and a half, plus restitution to all victims. Your $890,000 is part of that. I sat down. 15 years. Daniel was 38 now. He'd be 53 when he got out, if he got out. Middle-aged with a federal conviction owing nearly $1 million. What about the civil suit? Court date next month? Margaret says it's a formality. Daniel's guilty plea makes your case a slam dunk. Everything was falling into place. Justice, served cold and methodical, just like I'd planned it. But it felt strange. Hollow, almost. I'd won. I'd protected myself, exposed the truth, brought criminals to justice. So why didn't I feel triumphant? Maybe because victory over your own daughter doesn't feel like victory. It just feels like loss, dressed up in legal documents. That night, I sat in my workshop, surrounded by the ticking of my clocks, and allowed myself one moment of grief for the daughter I'd lost, for the family I'd thought I had, for the trust that could never be rebuilt. Then I wound up a clock, set it running, and moved forward, because that's what you do. You survive, you adapt, you keep going. Time doesn't stop for grief, it just keeps ticking, steady and relentless, carrying you toward whatever comes next. The final hearing happened on a gray October morning. The courtroom was almost empty. Just me, Margaret, Jessica and her lawyer, a court reporter, and Judge Morrison. Daniel was still in federal custody, so he wasn't there. His absence felt appropriate. This was about what he and Jessica had tried to do to me, and both of them facing consequences. Judge Morrison reviewed the case quickly. Daniel's guilty plea, the evidence Margaret had compiled, the audio recordings that proved conspiracy. Mrs. Harris Burney, the judge said, looking at Jessica, do you contest the plaintiff's claims of financial exploitation and emotional distress? Jessica's lawyer started to speak, but Jessica cut him off. No, Your Honor, I don't contest it. It's all true. Her lawyer looked shocked. I felt something shift in my chest. Surprise, maybe, or the faintest hint of respect. In that case, Judge Morrison said, I'm entering judgment for the plaintiff. Mrs. Harris Burney, you are ordered to pay $75,000 in damages to your father, Chester Burney. Given your current financial situation, the court will allow payment in installments of $625 per month over 10 years. Jessica nodded. Her hands trembled slightly as she signed the court documents. When she looked at me, her eyes held something I hadn't seen before, genuine shame. We left the courthouse through different exits. Margaret walked with me to the parking garage. "That's it," she said. "You won. Completely." "Yes," I said. "I did." "You don't sound happy about it?" "Winning against your own child isn't happy, Margaret. It's just necessary." She nodded, understanding. "What will you do now?" "Move forward. That's all any of us can do." The next week, I put the house up for sale. Too many memories in those walls. Too many ghosts. A young family bought it. Husband, wife, 2 kids, a dog. They were excited, full of plans. The husband shook my hand at closing. "We'll take good care of it," he promised. "I know you will." I found a nice 2-bedroom apartment in a quieter neighborhood, closer to Patrick's place with a parking garage and good security. The second bedroom became my new workshop, smaller than the old one, but big enough for my clocks and my workbench. Patrick helped me move. We hauled boxes of clock parts, tools, furniture, my collection of 23 restored clocks, each one carefully wrapped and transported. After we finished, we sat on my new balcony, drinking coffee and looking out over the city. "You okay, Dad?" "Yeah, I am." And surprisingly, it was true. You know what the hardest part is? I still love her. Jessica. She's still my daughter, even after everything. Of course you do. She's family. But love doesn't mean letting someone destroy you. That's what I learned. You can love someone and still protect yourself from them. That's wisdom right there. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over Philadelphia. Life settled into a new rhythm. I worked on my clocks, restored a beautiful pocket watch from 1887, fixed a mantel clock that someone had given up on, started volunteering at a senior center, teaching clock repair to other retirees who needed a hobby. About 2 months after the final hearing, I received a postcard. No return address, but I recognized Jessica's handwriting. Working as a hotel receptionist, in therapy, making payments, 1 day at a time. J. I put it on my refrigerator. Not forgiveness, exactly, but acknowledgement that she was trying. More postcards came over the following weeks. Brief updates. Got a promotion, assistant manager now. Paid this month's installment early. Therapist says I'm making progress. I didn't respond. Wasn't ready for that. But I kept the postcards. Put them in a small box in my workshop, along with a photo of Jessica from when she was 10, helping me fix a clock, smiling like she had no cares in the world. Maybe someday we'd talk again. Maybe not. Time would tell. Patrick visited often, sometimes bringing his wife and kids. My grandchildren would sit in my workshop, watching me work, asking questions the way Jessica once had. The cycle continuing, hopefully with better results. One evening I finished restoring a particularly challenging piece, an 1895 railroad watch that had been in terrible condition. I wound it up, and it ticked perfectly, keeping time with absolute precision. I held it up to the light, watching the gears turn through the transparent back. Every piece in its proper place, every movement exact. Perfect order restored from chaos. That's what I'd done with my life, I realized. Taken it apart when it was broken, examined each piece, fixed what could be fixed, replaced what couldn't, and put it back together, stronger than before. I was 67 years old. I'd survived 38 years of running into fires, a year of being manipulated and controlled, and a months-long legal battle. I'd lost my daughter, at least for now, but I'd kept my independence, my home, my dignity, and my sanity. Most importantly, I'd kept control of my own life. My clocks ticked around me, 23 different voices marking time in perfect harmony. Each one I'd restored with my own hands. Each one a small victory over entropy and decay. Some people might look at my life and see loss, a broken family, a daughter who betrayed me, years spent fighting just to keep what was mine. But I saw something different. I saw survival, resilience, proof that you're never too old to fight back, never too tired to defend yourself, never too weak to demand justice. Daniel would spend the next 15 years in prison, learning what it meant to have your freedom stripped away. Jessica would spend the next 10 years paying back what she tried to steal, learning the weight of consequences. And me? I'd spend however much time I had left doing what I'd always done, fixing broken things, keeping time, and moving forward. The clocks chimed 7. Time for dinner. Time to keep living. Because in the end, that's the best revenge of all. Surviving, thriving, and refusing to let those who try to destroy you define who you become. I wound my favorite clock, the 1920 mantelpiece that had hidden my recording device, and smiled at the irony. The same clock that had captured their conspiracy now sat on my new mantel, ticking away peacefully in a home they'd never control. Time marches on, and so do I. If you liked this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.